Ever feel like you're just drowning in information sometimes, trying to piece things together, but not quite getting the full picture?
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get lost.
Yeah. So that's what we do here. You give us the sources, articles, websites, you name it,
Hmm.
and we try to, boil it down to what's really interesting, what actually matters.
And today, you asked us to dig into India's Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, the DRI.
Exactly. We've got some excerpts here from their Wikipedia page, their official website, too.
Right. And for anyone listening who isn't familiar, the DRI is basically India's top agency for tackling smuggling intelligence, investigations, operations, the whole deal.
So our mission, if you want to call it that, is to get a real handle on what they do, where they came from, and just how wide their scope is. Cut through the noise a bit.
Sounds good.
Hmm.
So where should we kick things off? The beginning seems logical.
Let's do that. It wasn't always called the DRI, was it? I think I saw something about an earlier group.
That's right, yeah. The DRI officially started on December 4th, 1957. But the story really begins a bit earlier, back in 1953, with something called the Central Revenue Intelligence Board, CRIB for short.
CRIB. Okay, so what was their deal? What was the problem they were, like, set up to fix initially?
Well, back then, CRIB was a pretty small unit. It was under the Directorate of Inspection, actually.
Right.
And its main job was dealing with anti-smuggling and also anti-corruption, but specifically within the Customs and Central Excise departments in India.
Ah, okay. So focused internally almost.
Kind of, yeah. And interestingly, even though it was part of this directorate, it reported straight to the Central Board of Revenue. So think of it as the first sort of dedicated effort to clamp down on illegal trade and corruption within those specific revenue streams.
Right. So SRIB sort of proved the need for something bigger, something nationwide, which led to the DRI.
Exactly that. I mean, the experience with CRIB basically showed, hey, we need a dedicated agency, one with, a wider reach and the specific job of gathering intelligence on smuggling nationwide and figuring how to deploy resources against it. And that's where the DRI came in 57. And initially, they were also tasked with arranging training for intelligence and investigation officers, building that capacity.
Fascinating how it evolved. Now, thinking back to the 50s, 60s, when you think smuggling, maybe gold comes to mind first. Has the DRI's focus changed much since then?
Oh, dramatically.
And,
It really mirrors how crime itself and global trade have changed. You're right, gold smuggling was definitely a huge focus early on.
still is, I imagine, to some
It
extent.
still is relevant, yes. But the DRI's mandate today is, well, significantly broader. It now covers a much wider net of illegal activities, think narcotics, for one, and a whole range of economic crimes. It's
Yeah.
way more interconnected now.
Okay, when you say wider, what else are we talking about? It's not just gold anymore, clearly.
Not at all. The list of contraband they tackle is pretty extensive. You've got firearms, still gold, obviously, and a major focus on narcotics, as you'd expect.
Right.
But also things like fake Indian currency notes, FICN, which, can really destabilize the economy.
Huge implications there.
Definitely. And then there's trafficking in antiques, endangered wildlife, even environmental products.
Wow, environmental products. That really broadens the scope, doesn't it?
It does. And it shows this growing global understanding that wildlife crime isn't isolated. It's serious, often linked to organized crime networks.
So it's moved way beyond just physical goods smuggled in a bag.
Way beyond. The DRI is also heavily involved in preventing the spread of black money, tackling trade-based money laundering, which can get incredibly complex, and various types of commercial fraud. It's really about protecting India's national security and its economic health. A holistic approach, you could say.
That sounds like a massive, massive job. Who's actually running this whole operation?
Well, the DRI is a federal agency, part of the government of India. It works under the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, the CBIC.
Okay.
Its headquarters are in New Delhi. And the whole agency is headed up by a Director General. It's a very senior position, the rank of Special Secretary to the government of India.
And who's in that role currently?
Currently, it's M.K. Singh, who's from the Indian Revenue Service, the IRS.
Got it. And below the Director General, how is it structured? How do they cover the whole country?
It's a pretty layered structure, as you'd expect for covering all of India. There are 7 main zones, sort of like big regional commands.
Yeah.
Each of those is headed by an additional Director General. And then these zones are broken down further into regional units, sub-regional units, and even smaller intelligence cells.
Right, getting down to the local level.
Exactly. And within all these units, you've got officers of various ranks, additional directors, joint directors, deputy directors, right down to intelligence officers on the ground.
And these officers, where do they typically come from?
They're primarily drawn from the Indian Customs and Central Excise Department. So they bring that specific customs and tax expertise with them, which is crucial.
Right, that makes sense. So it's a specialized team within a clear hierarchy. What actually gives them the legal power, the teeth, to go after all these different kinds of crime?
That comes from their legal mandate. The Customs Act of 1962 is, of course, central. But crucially, the DRI is empowered to enforce, get this, over 50 other laws as well.
50. Wow. Like what?
Well, things like the NDPS Act, that's the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, the Arms Act, even the WMD Act, the Weapons of Mass Destruction Act.
Okay, so a very broad remit.
Extremely broad. And it has to be, right? Because smuggling and economic crime, they don't stick neatly into one box. They often cut across different laws.
So their job is much more than just, say, catching someone at the airport with undeclared watches.
Oh, much more. Intelligence is key, collecting it, both inside India and internationally. That includes using secret sources, informants.
Cultivating sources.
Exactly. Then they analyze all that information, look for patterns, threats, and pass it on to their field units so they can take action. Plus, DRI officers conduct their own investigations, major ones, and they also guide important cases handled by other customs formations.
And they work internationally, too. I think I read something about liaison work.
Yes, absolutely vital. The DRI is the main point person for sharing intel with ESCAP countries. That's the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific on smuggling and customs fraud across borders.
So regional cooperation.
Big time. And they liaise with other foreign countries directly, with Indian missions overseas, and they work with Interpol, too, usually via the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation.
Oh, and they also coordinate anti-smuggling stuff, specifically on the Indo-Nepal border.
It really sounds like they're plugged into a whole network of security and financial agencies, both at home and abroad.
They really are. And on the financial crime side, they often refer cases under the Customs Act over to the Income Tax Department if they suspect tax evasion is also involved.
Connecting the dots.
Precisely. They're also the ones who keep the national stats on seizures, which is super important for tracking trends, seeing what's hot, what's emerging in the smuggling world.
Data-driven approach, you could say that. And maybe most importantly, in today's world, they're part of several high-level national security and financial crime bodies, like the National Authority for the Chemical Weapons Convention, the Special Investigation Team on Black Money, the Task Force on Shell Companies,
Wow.
the Multi-Agency Center, or MA, which is all about sharing security intelligence, and they even have roles in specialized wings looking at left-wing extremism financing and terror financing.
Okay, so they are deeply involved in some very serious national security issues. Given all this huge mandate, this network, what's the actual impact? Are they making a difference on the ground?
Well, they certainly have a reputation for making some very significant seizures. They're known for big busts involving gold, fake currency, smuggled foreign cash, and especially, as we mentioned, narcotics.
Can you give us an idea of the scale? Like, are we talking significant amounts?
The numbers are pretty striking. Just looking at the last 5 years or so, the DRI seized over 540 kilograms of heroin.
540 kilos.
Yeah. And get this, over 7,400 kilograms of ephedrine.
Whoa. 7,409 kilograms, it says here. That's huge.
It's massive. And when you think about the potential harm those drugs could cause, disrupting those shipments makes a real impact. And that's just two examples,
Absolutely staggering numbers. Really puts the scale of illicit trade into perspective.
It does. And one tool they have to help get that kind of intel is a reward policy.
Ah, for informants.
Exactly. If someone provides information that leads to a seizure or helps recover government money that was evaded, they can potentially get a reward.
How much are we talking?
It could be up to 20% of the net sale proceeds of whatever contraband is seized and sold, or 20% of the duty that was evaded and then recovered. So it could be a pretty strong incentive.
Yeah, that's a smart way to encourage people with information to come forward. Kind of like crowdsourcing intelligence, in a way.
You could put it like that. And it's funny, for an agency that often works behind the scenes, the DRI has actually popped up in popular culture a few times.
Oh, really? Like in movies or TV?
Yeah. For example, there was a Bollywood film called 16 December. Danny Denzongpo played the DRI chief in that.
Huh, I might have seen that one.
And there was also a TV series called Powder, produced by Yash Raj Pictures, which was apparently directly inspired by the DRI's actual work and cases.
No kidding. That's quite something. It shows their work, even if it's not always visible, is compelling enough for storytellers.
It seems so. So yeah, wrapping up our deep dive here, we've seen the DRI grow from that small SRIB unit into this major force against a whole spectrum of threats, smuggling, economic crime, national security issues,
Right, with this complex structure, wide-ranging legal powers.
and a track record of pretty significant impact, judging by those seizure numbers and its role in these national task forces.
It definitely leaves you thinking, though. I mean, considering just how vast and complex all this illicit activity is, especially in a globalized world, what are the challenges going forward? How does an agency like the DRI need to keep adapting to stay effective? It's definitely something to chew on.
Absolutely. And if you, the listener, want to explore more about what they're up to right now, their official website is probably the best place to start.
Okay, another deep dive done. Thanks for walking us through the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence.
My pleasure.
And thanks to you for joining us. We'll catch you on the next exploration.